Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Irish Strength and Conditioning Coaches Connecting Coaches webinar. I'm Brenda Bannon. I am your host today. I'm based in Fermanagh. I'm going to quickly introduce Dan. So, welcome to Dan Baker. Dan, honestly, you're one of these coaches. Whenever I'm introducing, I'm afraid of missing out something because there are a list of accolades behind your name. So, I guess, Dan, you spent 19 years with the Brisbane Broncos and a very successful term there as well. You've also been head of the ASCA Association for 17 years, and you're a current board member. And you're delivering a lot of their workshops and accreditations as well. You're probably one of the handful of coaches that has the master's status there as well. So I think now today, for what you're delivering around strength and power in field-based sports, you're probably going to be the man to be leading this conversation. So we're absolutely delighted to have you here, and I guess the number of participants we have on already to come on and speak to you live here today just shows that your status in the strength and conditioning world amongst us. So we're absolutely delighted to have you on, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and join us. So without further ado, I will hand over to Dan, but just a little bit of housekeeping for anybody that's just joined us in the last couple of seconds. So Dan is going to present his presentation, and throughout the course of the presentation, if you could please keep your microphones off, also keep your camera off. If you have any questions or they're maybe coming or going and aren't here for the Q&A at the end, please pop them into the chat and I can ask Dan myself. But if you're staying about, hopefully we'll have a wee bit of a discussion at the end as well. So without further ado, I will just hand over to Dan here. Thank you so much, Dan.
All right, thanks, Brenda. I'll start off, everyone. Thanks for being here, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of these slides. So don't worry about having to take photos as we do it. So it's a simple slideshow, and I'll just progress along, and then we'll have a Q&A. So just some definitions first. The idea, the topic is power, field sports. Well, what is power? It's force via velocity. So every movement has power. But just it depends on what ratio of force and what ratio of velocity. So if we think of smaller resistances like hurling, swinging the hurley, throwing a punch, kicking the football, that's a very light implement. So it's higher velocity type of power. And then we think of grappling or MMA when you're against an opponent, your own body weight. That's a fairly big resistance. Then we go to rugby, and it's not just one opponent. You could be against 3 or 4 opponents. So when we talk of power, you've got to look at it, as in what type of power. Is it a high velocity type power or medium or more high force power? And that affects our training content. So just give an example. If we look in the gym setting, power force by velocity, the simple formula is force equals the kilograms we lift times by 9.81, which is acceleration due to gravity. So we take a 100 kilogram squat, times that by 9.81 meters per second, and we get 981 newtons of force. If we multiply that by the velocity, in this case, the mean velocity, which is the velocity across the entire range of motion, we'll get 490 watts of power. Now, I might do a jump squat with 50 kilograms. So 50 times by 9.81 equals, say, 490 newtons of force. But if I'm moving at 1 meter per second, I get the same power output. So we can get use different combinations to develop power. That just an example, a theoretical example. So when I'm talking power training, we're going to talk about both force and velocity, but I'm going to give you the statistics on which way is the most fruitful way to follow to develop more power quickly. And this is a debate. Should I embrace more of a speed or velocity type approach or more of a strength approach? So here's just some data on rugby league players. And this is modified for one of my studies. So I've got 15-year-olds, sort of 20-year-olds or academy age, and NRL pros. And the velocity test was lifting an empty bar in the Smith machine. And they could throw it. So as fast as you can. And we measure the velocity, the mean velocity. And we see this 1.39 for the 15-year-olds, 1.61 and 1.74. So across those different age groups or stages of development, we see there's a 25% difference in that velocity test. But we look at their free weight 1RM, there's a massive difference. It's 70%. So if you think of, force by velocity, and when we want somewhere in the middle, what's the easiest way to improve power is get stronger. It's mathematically much larger scope for improvement. So when you see someone having this debate, just say, listen, mate, I'm going to give you an uppercut with science and data and facts. Yes, we want to embrace velocity as an avenue. There's 20 or 30% avenue of improvement that way, but we may be 70% or more via force. So we're going to train both, but with our younger athletes, there's a way to go, and this is the way to go, is to improve their force development capabilities as the priority. Doesn't mean neglect velocity, but prioritize improving force. And here's something, even at elite level, this is an Olympic diver. He went to 2 Olympics, 1988 and 1996. He missed selection for the 92 Olympics. So he trained with me as part of the AIS, the Australian diving squad, between 93 and 96. Now, you have to cast your mind back into the 90s. People didn't lift barbell weights. They thought it made you muscle bound and slow. So we had this elite athlete, 4 days a week of plyometrics plus 6 days of diving, which is a plyometric activity. You bounce on the diving springboard platform. So he's doing 10 sessions a week of jumps and no strength training. He's flogged that dead horse. He can't get any more movement or any more improvement out of that high velocity training. So we undertook strength training, and he's never lifted weights before, like squats. So we get a 50% increase in full squat from an 80 kilogram 5RM to 120K 5RM. And that's not fantastic, but you see that improvement in strength then leads to a 25% increase in power, in loaded jump squat power, 60, 70, 80 kilograms. And that then gives us a 15% improvement in his vertical jump. So we increase strength to increase power, to increase the velocity as well. So, bigger gains in strength. This is an elite athlete, 2 Olympics. Should have been a 3. So what I want to talk about is getting the right start, just for a few slides. Let's look at kids 16 to 14 first. And basically, in ASCA, we say this is stage 1 and stage 2 training. Stage 1 is like 6 to 9 or 10, and stage 2 is 10 to 14, roughly. And what we're going to do with them is basically do movement training and some body weight strength training, but we'll supplement the body weight strength training, what we call soft resistances, like med balls, sandbags, band resistance, things like that. Don't touch a barbell at all until you're in stage 3, maybe 14, 15. Just do this type of training. And we're obviously going to do basic introductory power training, jumping, hopping, throwing, hitting, catching.